G'day, I'm Matt and this is the Mazda CX-5. This one here is the Touring Active grade. It comes with all-wheel drive and a petrol engine, but I don't think it's the best version of the CX-5 you can get. I'm going to tell you my pick of the range in this review and also some of the stuff that you really ought to know about this car. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe. It helps a lot. Join the community and have your say in the comments section. Pricing for the Mazda CX-5 ranges from $35,500 up to around $55,000. And there are 11 different grades available with the choice of petrol, petrol turbo and turbo diesel engines. So I'm not going to go through every single little detail in each of the different model grades. I'm just going to tell you what I think is the best one that you should buy. It would be this one, which is the Touring Active, except that it doesn't have the good turbo petrol engine. So that means that my choice is the GT-SP, which does get the 2.5 litre turbo petrol, all-wheel drive, and also some stuff that you will appreciate, including heated front seats, 19-inch alloy wheels, and a sunroof, and an electric boot. And if you can't stretch your funds to be quite that big, then maybe you could look at a Max Sport, and it has, well, a $10,000 advantage, but it still has a bunch of nice equipment that you will appreciate. If you've seen any of my other mid-size SUV reviews, you've probably already seen me reference the Toyota RAV4 as my pick. I still think it's the best thing that you can buy in terms of real world efficiency, and also it's a very well packaged car. So I like it a lot, and the fact that it's got hybrid or petrol available will mean that it's a really good option for most people. If you want a diesel, it doesn't have that. And if you want 7 seats, it doesn't have that either. So that might rule it out for you. But if you are okay with a petrol or petrol hybrid 5-seat SUV, then you should also check out the Subaru Forester. Hit the link at the top of your screen to see my review of that car. I think it's one of the most underrated cars and probably more available than a Toyota RAV4. Wait times on the RAV are still pretty long. So would you choose one of those, or do you want to have a third option, which is the Hyundai Tucson? Again, a 5-seater with a big boot, no 7-seat option, but still a very good car. But the catch with it is you have to choose the diesel if you want the best engine. There is no hybrid either just yet, so that might be right for you or it might not. Let me know in the comments. The CX-5 does feel pretty small for a mid-size SUV, and in fact it is just a few centimetres longer than some of the small SUVs on the market. A commenter the other day said that they think that the CX-5 is basically a half step between small and mid-size SUVs, and I tend to agree. It is a little bit compromised as a result of its smaller exterior dimensions. And let's have a look at the boot, because it's always been a big talking point for this car. For the size of this SUV, the boot isn't as big as some of the rivals I already mentioned. It's 438 litres of cargo capacity. Still big enough to fit a pram and some bags, but it might be just a little bit too small for a big trip. Some of those other rivals that I did mention have bigger boots, which will be more accommodating for that sort of driving, if that's what you're going to do. Under the boot floor, you'll find a space saver spare wheel, which is nice to see. And also, you've got these handy little levers to lower the seat backs if you need to. And also it's a 40-20-40 split, so you can lower that middle one by itself if you need to, and then also that one. Yeah, very practical for an SUV that isn't as practical as it could be, if you get what I mean. The interior of this version of the CX-5 certainly does have some interesting elements to it. As I mentioned, this one is the Touring Active version, and it gets these lime green, I guess you'd call them, highlights on the dashboard around the vents, and also there's some similar coloured piping and features on the seats. And these seats do look pretty good and they're very comfortable, and also I like the material that's on the inside of this leatherish bit on the outside. It does look nice and feel nice, and they are supportive too. Otherwise though, the interior does feel a little bit dated. Sure, this big touchscreen, actually not a touchscreen, this media screen up here is, I mean, bright and colourful, but like I said, it's not a touchscreen. So you have to use this rotary dial between the seats to go through the Apple CarPlay or any of the menus on the screen for that matter. You might be surprised just how many twists and turns and pushes and presses you need to do rather than just touching the screen, which is what Apple CarPlay is designed to be, a mirror of your phone. Anyway, I don't like it. It's one of the most annoying things about the cabin of this car, to be honest. There's also some nice elements to the car though. It's got these controls down here. So you've got dials, buttons and knobs. You know how much I love those. There's not too much piano black, which is good because there's not too many fingerprint laden surfaces as a result, and it is pretty practical in terms of storage. You've got a wireless phone charger in this spec. You've got a couple of cup holders here. You've got a covered center bin with a little tray in there as well, some USB-C ports, big door pockets as well. So it does have the practicality element sorted to a degree. I just wish that it had a proper touchscreen media system. Back seat. Over the years, the CX-5 has copped it for not having as much space as it could have in the second row or in the boot. But look, this seat is set for me at 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall. I've got enough knee room and enough foot room and enough headroom in here to be comfortable. I could fit 3 adults across here as long as they weren't too big. And look, there's enough foot room as well because there is a transmission tunnel, but it's not massive. So look, it's not going to be the most accommodating 5-seat vehicle, but you can fit 5 people in here if you need to. If you've got young kids, then you've got ISOFIX points in the window seats and 3 top tether points as well. Directional air vents, which is always a plus. You've got mat pockets on the backs of both seats, and they're proper pockets. They're not mesh ones, which is good, but there is no hard backing on the seats, so little kids might actually cause a little bit of damage there. There's also bottle holders in the doors. As I mentioned at the boot section, this middle section does fold down, but there's also a flip down armrest with cup holders, a little storage tray here, and a hidden storage tray with USB ports too. And like I said, this bit can fold down if you need to load longer items through. So it's not impractical, but it could be maybe a little bit more practical. If you're really strapped for cash, the entry-level engine in the CX-5 range is called the G20. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder, and it's a bit of a dud, if you ask me, for this size of car. It just feels like you have to rev its ring off all the time just to get the most out of it. So I wouldn't choose that if I could avoid it. Then there's the 2.5 litre 4-cylinder Sky Active petrol engine, non-turbo, and it's called the G25. And it's definitely a better engine than the base model. It comes with the choice of front or all-wheel drive, depending on which grade you choose. And just like the entry-level version, 6-speed auto as well. And then there's my pick, the G35, which is a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine, and it has 170 kilowatts and 420 newton meters of torque. And if that means nothing to you, just know that it's really, really quick, and it definitely has enough grunt for this sort of application. And if you prefer diesel, there is still a diesel option. It's called the D35. It's a 2.2 litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine and definitely has plenty of grunt. It is just a little bit gruff and rumbly. So if you want the most refined engine, the turbo petrol would be the pick, and that's why it's my pick. Loud is a bit of a common theme in the CX-5 because it is one of the noisier cars in terms of engine noise coming through to the cabin, and it makes it a little bit tiresome to live with. I find that in most other mid-sized SUVs at this sort of price point, you don't often hear anywhere near as much of the engine as you do in a CX-5. The 2 litre and 2.5 litre non-turbo versions especially are a bit loud, they're just noisy. Whereas the 2.5 litre turbo petrol, which I've said is my pick, is much more refined. It doesn't necessarily need to use as much of the rev range to do its best work. So that means that it's more relaxed in the way that it accelerates and the way that you experience it. Which is part of the reason that I think it's so much better than the other engines in this range. Look, I've driven the diesel one as well. It's a bit gruff and grumbly, and it's definitely got enough power and torque, but it's not necessarily going to win any refinement contests, just like the non-turbo versions of this engine as well. Okay, so noisiness and refinement aside, what's this 2.5 litre engine actually like? It's fine. I wouldn't say that it's a powerhouse, but the 6-speed automatic does do a pretty good job of harnessing the power that it does offer, and it will allow the car to rev a little bit harder than you probably expect it to, even more so if you put it into sport driving mode, which is just a little flick of the switch down here. And I don't really drive in sport mode very much, especially if I'm just doing what I'm doing in this sort of car, which is just tooling around town, doing a bit of urban running, picking up my daughter from daycare, that sort of stuff. And it's, you know, it's fine. It's just fine. It's just not great, is the big thing. If you want a really great engine, you gotta buy the turbo petrol. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. As for the other elements of the drive experience, this car still has a bit more of a tied down and a bit more of a, I guess, in touch with the road feel that some other SUVs don't have. That can be good and bad. So you don't feel remote from anything that's happening with the car when you're driving it, which some other SUVs can make you feel like you're being left out of the whole conversation. This car, not so much. It's very much having a one-on-one discussion with you about what's happening. The steering, for instance, has this characteristic where it's actually pretty involving to drive, and it's one of the better steering SUVs in this segment. And the ride, well, it's a bit firm. A lot of the time you will feel what's happening in the surface below you more than you might want to, and that could be a concern for some buyers. Like, I prefer a more comfortable ride than this car offers, and it really does feel very chatty when you go over sharp repetitive bumps or big sharp bumps. It just could be better. It's not bad, it just could be better. One other thing I just wanted to call out, it's a Mazda criticism more than a CX-5 criticism, is the driver's side mirror is not convex, and it can mean that it's hard to see what's happening in your blind spot. I really don't like it. Another thing that I haven't found as reassuring as it could be in this car is the brake feel and the response. At times I've had to really jump on the brakes when I thought that maybe just a gentle application would do the job. Yeah, not fantastic. Maybe it's just this car though. If you choose the entry-level version of the CX-5 with the 2-litre engine, you get the most efficient petrol version of this car, and that might appeal to you. It's not hybrid-like in terms of fuel efficiency, but you'll see the figure for the official combined cycle fuel consumption on your screen now. It's okay, and you will get pretty close to that in real-world driving if you're gentle on the throttle. Step up from there into the 2.5 non-turbo version, and you'll see the fuel consumption does jump up just a little bit. It's not to a huge degree though. And if you're wondering what I've seen during my week with this 2.5 non-turbo, you'll see that on your screen now. I was okay with that. Not necessarily setting any new standards though. As I keep rattling on about, the 2.5 litre turbo does have a better drive experience but a higher fuel consumption rating. The official figure is 8.2 litres per 100 k's for that car, and if you were to drive it like I would want to drive that car, you'd be seeing closer to 9 or 10 in most situations, I would say. And then there's the diesel version, and it is the best in terms of litres per 100 k's of the entire CX-5 range. You can see the figure on your screen now, and you will see pretty close to that in my experience in that sort of configuration. The Mazda CX-5 has a 5-star ANCAP safety rating from 2017, which is quite a while ago, and it actually expires at the end of 2023, that 5-star score. So while it is still valid, it doesn't necessarily have all of the safety technology that you might expect of a new car in 2023. Look, it's still got auto emergency braking and lane keeping assistance and blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert and a rear AEB system, which some SUVs don't have, and that is something that I definitely appreciate as a parent. And then there's also a reversing camera and rear parking sensors on every model as well. So it's not necessarily short when it comes to safety tech. It's just missing a few of those things that newer models have, like cyclist detection for the AEB system and junction detection as well, to stop you from darting in front of a car if it doesn't think that you're going to make it. It also doesn't have a front center airbag, which plenty of new models do, but it does still have 6 airbags, dual front, front side and full length curtain coverage. So it's not necessarily the safest car, but still has a bunch of safety gear fitted. Like most brands in Australia, Mazda offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. There's also 5 years of cap price servicing available for each of the different models in the range. Just take note that the petrol models have service intervals of 12 months, 15,000 Ks, where the diesels are every 12 months and 10,000 Ks. So if you do buy a diesel, it might seem low for the average service price on your screen now, but just remember that if you do a lot more distance, then you have to spend more money maintaining it. So it could actually be quite expensive to own a diesel version of this car. You also get 5 years of roadside assist included with every CX-5. Yes, the CX-5 is starting to feel its age, and it isn't as big or as practical as some of those other models that I've mentioned and most of the other models in this segment. But if you like its size and you like its style and you like the stuff it offers, then it could still be the right car for you. It's still got a lot going for it. I just reckon that the GT SP, or any version with the turbo petrol, will be the best CX-5 you can get. But tell me your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you own a CX-5? What do you think about it? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please do hit like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.